Welcome to Emotional Sobriety. Can you do a post-mortem, or maybe post-mortem's a little morbid, but how did the event go at Hazelden? What can you tell us about it from the wrap-up?
Yeah, it was amazing. Like it wasn't for writers per se. It was just for anyone. Like everyone in 12-step recovery does some writing, right? There's a few lists, along the way, right?
Right.
And so this was a workshop by Maria Hornbacher, a New York Times bestselling author. She's written a couple of memoirs. She's a journalist. She's a English professor, and in recovery. So from sort of anorexia and food disorders, and also substance use disorder as well. So she's written books. One was called, the first one I ever interviewed her on for thefix.com was Waiting, a Non-Believer's Higher Power, in 2011. And Wasted was about food disorders, and Sane was about bipolar and recovery in the 12 steps. And there's another one called Madness.
I love the one-word titles.
Page-turners. Yeah.
My favorite filmmaker, Michael Mann, he likes to do the really terse titles that are almost like elements on the periodic table. Like that's how.
Yeah. And I would say of this thing, it wasn't so much what people got out of it, it's what it drew out of them. Like a lot of these people wouldn't consider themselves writers per se, but the exercises that we were doing, people were coming up with some very insightful stuff and profound, to themselves and to everybody. And then there was this general, like on the Saturday night, just offering prompts, and people were doing just, prose or poetry or whatever they want. And, we were taking pauses from time to time to read some of them, and some like just really vulnerable and really creative use of English language. It was people from 7 months sobriety to 49 years sobriety, one of them celebrating. Wow. A couple of people came there to celebrate their anniversary, sort of their AA or whatever 12-step program they're in, reward to themselves.
The more fanfare you can bring to those kinds of celebrations or observations or the cake day, the better.
Yeah, it's important to honor our progress. We spend so much time, like if we're going to be talking about fear and talking about finance, we're touching on my day job stuff. And,
mine too.
Yeah, people tend to, like, what's the talk around the coffee pot, right? Quote unquote outside issues. It's romance, it's finance, work, right? There's ways within our construct, there's ways within emotional sobriety to sort of look at how am I doing? How is my financial hygiene, right? Am I achieving my goals? Am I getting further away from my goals? Are my goals in line with my values? All the things that we're trained in recovery can easily be applied to these things that seem overwhelming until you put pen to paper and do it with somebody else. It's that isolation, the monsters get bigger, the shadows get bigger. Against the wall.
That's definitely one of the nutshells is isolation. I just finished a text with a client of mine who's going through a lot of stuff right now, just with an event that she's going to. And the one thing I could tell is and I appreciated she was reaching out to me, but she wasn't talking to anybody else. And I just, she's there with her boyfriend. And I just said, talk to Matt. And it's like, and she just sent back a note and said, I have, and that helps. It's like simple as that. Just don't do it. I mean, and I have to be reminded of that as much as, today, maybe not as much as I used to, but occasionally I need to be reminded, when I'm just in these deep conversations in my own head that are likely just to be like spinning the wheels in the mud.
Say it has to do with money. Your sponsor doesn't have to be a financial advisor to talk in general terms. Like just sometimes when we're doing an inventory, we find we do need professional help for this or that. And we might identify areas where we do. But first, we've got to get in line with things like, what were my attitudes about money that I was programmed with? And are they my values, or am I still carrying around the baggage from another generation? About debt, about borrowing and saving and planning for the future. All of those are cultural things as much as they are practical things.
Yeah. And the other thing is, it's just expression, expression, not repression. It's just like you got to put it out there, even if there's no solution. How often when we approach every conversation like we're supposed to have some, it's like a problem solving thing. Lots of them are, but lots of times the problems are being solved when we're just expressing ourselves. I mean, think about how many times just in our own process that when we're thinking out loud, when I'm talking to you and saying something out loud, I'm hearing myself from a different perspective. Right. I may be projecting that onto you and imagining I'm seeing what I'm thinking, what Joe and Patrick are thinking. But what I'm really doing is I'm seeing myself from different points of view within my own consciousness. And so, how often do we catch ourselves when we're saying something out loud to somebody and go like, I just realized what I said was stupid. It's like, I'm missing the point, but I didn't know that while it was in here.
Why do we say identify as someone with substance use disorder or alcoholic or however we identify? Hearing it said changes our consciousness, especially if it's our voice. And Allen talks about coming up with novel solutions. So, well, where are they going to come from without uttering, what are the rules of the game here? What's the problem we need to deal with? Right. What are some potential solutions?
Well, when you say novel solutions, it's like that can mean that if I talk to other people that I'm going to get some, as I speak to you and Patrick about this, some of the novel solutions may be coming from your minds. But the other thing is if the expression, not repression, it's like if I'm speaking it out loud, then that invites other aspects of myself to join the conversation.
Yes. Exactly.
Because I've often tell people or demonstrate that to people that if you'll say something, I'll have them make a statement that they're making, and then say, "What do you hear next in your head?" And a lot of times it is most of the times it's an immediate response to what they just said. It may be validation. Well, I just realized that's really true. Or, if I'm having them say, okay, well, just say that you're a piece of shit out loud. What do you hear next? It's like, maybe it's just a little bit of doubt. Well, that's coming from you.
I'm gonna ask you guys a question, and then I think we should drop anchor and get on to the theme for today, even though we've been kind of pawing at it.
This isn't it.
This is part of it. This is part of it.
I hope you're recording. You should just get this shit. I mean, it's just
Allen likes to ask how everybody's emotional sobriety is today. And so I thought we could go around and check in about that, starting with Tom.
To the degree that the emotional sobriety is about congruence, about feeling what I feel like is what I'm saying and how I'm acting is congruent with what I'm feeling is probably true. It's like there's a little stuckness in me, but I'm preoccupied. I'll just say it that way. I'm preoccupied. I go to my this appointment tomorrow with a doctor that I think is likely they're going to. The way I say it is they're trying to pin a cancer diagnosis on me, and I don't have a good lawyer. So it's, I think we're going to, I mean, the news could be good. We've already ruled out some really scary things so I'm feeling good, but I'm preoccupied with it. Let's put it that way. Yeah. I noticed that while you guys were talking at the beginning, it's like my mind wasn't even, I realized I wasn't even listening to what you were saying because I couldn't tell you what I was thinking, but I know I was somewhere else.
Man, I relate to that pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. So to me, the emotional sobriety part is being honest about that. I think sometimes one of the things we can do is people, we're so good at being judgmental of ourselves. And it's like, we think of emotional sobriety would mean I would be in harmony with everything and feeling wonderful. And it's like, and I don't think of it that way. I think of it as just being real. It's like, and not expression, not repression. I'm not hiding from it. I'm trying to pay attention to it, and even finding the places where I'm, and as you asked me to talk about it out loud, I can't even identify them verbally, but I can feel the glitch. I call the glitches inside of me, where there are places where I'm going like, oh, okay, well, there's some places there I don't want to go. There's some I don't want to go down that path. It's like, but I'm aware of it, and I have no problem at all. I'm grateful for this, admitting that to you two. So,
nice.
so I feel real. That's what I feel, whether that's emotionally sober or not. But it feels good to me, and I'm glad to be with you guys.
Can I just say, that really helps the rest of us, Tom. And I mean, it has a lot recently, and your vulnerability and externalizing the interior conversation in a way that, like, it's we all try to, or many of us try to maintain clean lines, I guess, in the way that we present to others. But the lines are, in my case anyway, often very unclean and ill-defined.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It's one of the things that I'll tell people about. And the young woman who wrote a bestseller called Life Without Ed, that I worked with her on that book, and one of the things when she and I were a long time ago when we were presenting on that stuff, I would say, and Jenny would say the same thing. She would point out that she says, in the book, a couple of 3 pages, and I have this wonderful insight, and it's like in act, and a lot of the book is about our therapy together. It's like in what she would point out is like, that's not how it was. It wasn't 2 or 3 pages. It was, some of this stuff might have been faster than other things, but it was messy, and it was deep, and it was dark, and sorting through that stuff. And it's like, so I noticed that one of the things I have to be careful about in writing, like case examples in my books, is I don't want to do that. I don't want to make it seem like it's just, first of all, I don't want to make it like, oh, I'm saying what a great therapist I am. If you talk to me, I'm gonna cure you. It's like, but just to get down into the gritty parts of that, and even give examples and places where there is no clear, or even, like, to use your word, clear resolution, but there's movement. Because that's a big part of what we do is we're just looking for where we're stuck, and how can we get ourselves unstuck? Because I just believe that if we're moving, it's better than if we're not. It's like and a lot of times, there's been some places that, I stayed stuck for years, and the more you spin your tires, the deeper it goes into the mud, as I remember.
There was probably a time when I thought of emotional sobriety as being free from that life on the edges, the fear, the overwhelming love, the anger, the frustration, the existential angst. But it's living consciously, isn't it? It's being willing to do that. And in the last couple of weeks, there's things I felt great longing for, and why keep them to myself, right? If I'm concerned about people or want to talk to people, get them on the phone, set some time up, and work. These things can be done one at a time, no matter how much sand is in the top of the hourglass. Only one bead at a time comes through the neck. So it doesn't matter how overwhelming my things to do list seems to be, I can still only do one thing at a time, and it gets done. Eventually, all of that sand up there is down below, and you turn it over and you do it again. And the last couple of weeks have been like that for me, where I see myself not trying to defend myself from how I feel, but just be aware of it and be conscious of it, and when I need to talk about it.
There's a zillion ways we have to say it, but it's getting out of our own way.
Sometimes a gut check is better than an intellectual approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Be here now.
Yeah. Well, we like to say that our problems are not really our problems, and that it's the way that we react to the situations that challenge us that really makes them what they are, or that really kind of puts us on one path or another, positive or negative. It's how we're reacting. It's not the thing. And I guess to some extent, what I wanted us to talk about today was when the problem is really glaring, when you're pushed into a corner, and matters of finance, matters of physical health can do this. Sometimes that becomes like a contest. It's the reaction, the opportunity for reaction, the space for it, the latitude to actually kind of like put some put some ground between you and the thing that's eating you. It starts to shrink.
Let me see if I got this right, though. You're talking about in my book, Embracing Fear. The first thing I talk about, I think it's the first thing I talk about is we have to understand and learn to perceive the difference between healthy fear and neurotic fear. It's like,
right. And if you allow me an anecdote, because there's a situation. My girlfriend has a chronic health condition. It's a very real, I don't believe it's psychosomatic. She can stay awake. She sleeps for much of the day. And for a few hours towards the end of the day, she kind of has a spike of energy and she's able to take care of some business. But it's been a condition that's worsened over time, and it's debilitating. And I had a long day earlier this week where we were trying to get some healthcare coverage for her. She's been in the process of navigating, the Obamacare and then this thing called Medi-Cal, for our state. And it's just been this Byzantine kind of like Mobius strip of not being able to get the coverage necessary to go to a doctor and kind of like get into a process of addressing these issues. And I think like one of the days this week, I actually sat with her and we were on the phone with a couple different institutions, just trying to get to the bottom of this thing, and really not ending up no further than when we started. I suppose like a positive spin I could put on that is that like, well, this teaches me some things. This is information I can add to my quiver now as we continue this journey of trying to, to get her health problems addressed.
Here's a list of things that won't work.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I got it.
But like I was in a funk for like a couple days, and I only really yesterday I went to go speak on a panel for AA, and got moving, got out of my own head, to talk to some people, and I'm sure we'll unpack that a bit. But like experiences like that really, for me, cause a flare in all of the negative voices in my head that just try and tell me that it's all fucked. There's very little you can do to kind of like, to create an outcome that you would like, and discouragement from really trying, from being in a movement mentality. And so I expect that like everybody has experiences like that. Everybody has these kind of ongoing life challenges, and maybe it's just me, but like I we're not always. A lot of men, younger men, that I deal with in recovery aren't always as forthcoming about this type of thing. I think there's maybe some shame associated with it. Yeah. And so that's me anyway. That's what kind of got me into thinking about big problems.
Well, and your experience together with that, but with beginning with her medical condition, it's like, yeah, that's an example of healthy fear. Now, it doesn't mean everything we're doing about it is healthy, but it means because there are a lot of the neurotic fears we do is we go in there and we talk to each other and we kind of find out, I'm making up something to be afraid of. It's like it's real. It's real in the fact that it's a real feeling. But you're talking about there is something that is not only the fear about the condition itself, but just that ridiculously frustrating thing that without going off into politics of comparing our country to Joe's, is the idea that it shouldn't be that fucking hard to get care when you have a serious health issue. And even before she gets the care she needs, she has to work her ass off just to get some coverage for it. It's like, that's real.
I got a little insight, because see, I think part of the terror that seeped in when I went through this, or I guess the depression that followed, is I hadn't really faced it. Like my mother has been paying my health insurance through our family plan for years. If I get sick, if I need to go to urgent care somewhere, like I just get to do that. And over time, I've been able to put in calls to my provider and kind of whittle things down, and it has gotten more manageable over time. But through this situation with my partner, I was confronted finally with like the gaping maw of like how bad it is, and like how fucked a person can be by not having somewhere to go. And anyway, so I was confronted with that. It was a humbling moment for me. I think I learned a lot just in one day about what many of us are up against. And I was telling my dad about it, and he, in disbelief, him kind of being similarly insulated against like the kind of the drudgery of what most people have to do and finding an arrangement. He gets out his laptop and he starts just kind of dinking around with his 2-finger, typing, just, it can't be that difficult. Come on, I mean, did you try calling X and Y? And, and I was literally seeing him enact the same, like, Abbott and Costello routine that I was, but right. That like, when my girlfriend was explaining the difficulty to me. And I guess that parallel point can be, don't offer advice unless solicited. People, you can best serve others by listening.
Oh my God, yes. But kudos, by the way, this may not be even accurate from your point of view, but from listening to it, kudos to your dad to not just put out the judgment and leave it there. He's actually at that time trying to test his theory there. And you know that if he were to just continue, I don't know if he did or not, but if he continues to do that, he's going to discover the same thing. It's like and I love let me check this out, because I mean, how many times? I mean, I've certainly done that as probably in my personal life, but certainly as a therapist, where the humility factor is probably the most healing thing, where I get to a place where I just say to my client, wow, you were right about that. I thought this and this and this, but you gave it an honest try, and we really haven't seen much progress from that. So I think you were right. We're going to need to come up with a different plan. Reassurance is to fear as food is to hunger. Reassurance between us human beings is either criticism or minimization. Oh, no, you don't need to be afraid of that. That's going to be okay.
That bad.
Yeah, it's it's going to be okay. It's like, if I tell, I don't care if I tell you I'm getting on an airplane, I'm afraid to fly, and you go like, no, it'll be fine. Yeah, well, thanks a lot. It's like, what's more reassuring? Reality. Well, that must suck for you, Tom, that you have to get on the airplane when you're that scared. Thank you. Yes, that feels good.
Yeah, and you're going to feel more heard that way.
Yeah, and that's what you're doing with Maddie, is when you're saying that, Patrick, is you go in there with her, experience it, you're able to look at her and go like, wow, I've got this at a whole new level, what you're up against. I mean, that's empathy.
Well, tell me what you think of this. Like, and I mean, I know that Dee Dee's had, some health struggles lately. And at a certain point, I realized like I've been tunnel vision on a quote unquote solution. We're going to solve this thing. We're going to like fix her illness. And that is where I need to be putting all my eggs in that basket. And and I feel like the reality is that like, this is a process. It's a long-term process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And what I'm not doing a good job of is just accepting in this moment that like, we may be on our way towards, being able to get some leverage over, this ailment and all the ways that it's affecting her and us, but for the time being, I'm part of what's so uncomfortable about this is that like I'm just not doing a great job of just sitting with it. And it's, I think, delineating between like surrender, the kind of like the surrender that's unproductive and the surrender that's essential, you know, can sometimes get a little muddy at times.
Well, this goes back to the reality part that you're talking about. I think this is an oversimplification, of course, but I think we are pretty easily offended by chronicity. It's like, you know, the idea you're talking about something, at least for the time being. Maybe it's not. Maybe there's a cure for what she's talking about. But the truth is, the experience is going to be, this is a chronic problem. And it's like, you know, we really have the basics. We both, all three of us have a chronic condition, you know. It's addiction. It's like, you may have other chronic conditions, but it's addiction. It's like, you know, to the degree that we're doing well, we can say, you know, we can say up to the point of saying it's really in remission. But it's like none of us is foolish enough to say, I no longer have that. And certainly at the beginning of the process of healing from our addiction, we're looking at how to manage it as opposed to just trying to cure it, you know. And that's what, you know, it's again, the whole acceptance thing. So it's, yeah. And I mean, Dee Dee's been through this back surgery recently, but I mean, that's actually a much more straightforward. It's been difficult, but it's been a straightforward thing. I would say what Dee Dee had was, she was back in I guess in 98 or something like that. She had was diagnosed with a tick-borne disease called ehrlichiosis, and in those days, doctors were still saying people don't get these tick-borne diseases, only animals do. And so, you know, and the one thing that, without going into details about that, but one thing that is really most dangerous about tick-borne diseases is if you don't address them quickly. It's like, and they didn't. And I mean, our vet actually diagnosed it. And then we had to convince the doctor. But because of that, I won't go into the details, but I mean, that was a long-term struggle. And to this day, there are issues that she knows, and now is validated by doctors, still has at a chronic level. That is like almost like an immune deficiency experience. It's like, so anyway, the point there is, what may help you with that, Patrick, is basically settling in and realize, okay, well, this is part of what we deal with and what she deals with on a day-to-day basis. And we need to get help, make the goal like because what you need with the coverage is you need medical experts to help problem solve, you know. And the other thing is, your point of supporting her is supporting her, you know, as she learns to live with this condition, as opposed to always thinking about, let's get rid of it. You know, what we do is we've learned to live with our condition. If you think about it, we're good examples of that. We you know, when as long as I was trying to stop being an alcoholic, I was up shit creek, you know, because I was always testing it. You know, I think I got it this time, you know.
Well, I want to hear from Joe, but I'll just say that, like, I need a lot of work on how to live with this and how to live with a lot of things. I mean, I'm always looking ahead of the thing rather than looking at the thing clearly, if that makes any sense.
You've come to the right place.
So anyway,
we're driven by two things at our lizard brain level, and I identify with this completely: fear of loss, desire for gain. And when there's health problems, that triggers our fear of loss, and we want to control the outcome. We don't only want to help, we want to be able to control the outcome. So we'll only allow ourselves to think about a certain success, a certain result, as opposed to just dealing with things as they are in the emotional sobriety way, right? Not slipping back into sleepwalking, but stay conscious, right? Deal with things as they come. We're here in this moment together. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. And that, to me, is better than, you know, a force field. Because if I can, especially in a committed relationship, you know, face whatever comes, you know, not having to do it alone. Wow. You know, we don't know whatever comes is going to be, but you know, we're all going to die. Nobody gets out of this alive, but we're going to, you know, we're going to come up with some solutions here, and we're going to accept what we have to. And there's some things that we're going to say, that's unacceptable. We can or will change that. And in little bits, like that one little bit of sand. I talked about in financial planning, I start with what are your values? And then if you start with principles and values, then you don't need a clear plan, because you're going to adjust as you go along. You're going to stay with your core principles and values of honesty, of love, of service, whatever they are. And as the challenges come, figure them out as you go. You don't need a complete roadmap to see every turn in the road in your future. You've got your principles, you got your, and that's what recovery gave me. Is part of what happened to me in isolation is I steal this line from Grosse Point Blank. They found I had a certain moral flexibility.
Oh my God, I love that movie so much. It's one of my favorites.
And and
is that Cusack? Is that John Cusack?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it made him a good hitman, right?
Yeah.
This is a bad guy, kill him. This is a good guy, protect him, right?
I like, and then he's like, I know that sounds bad.
But from my sort of recovery story point of view, that comes into play in terms of if my dependencies on people are so great that my values are their values, right? I've lost myself, right? If my need for feeding an addiction or any other desire is so great that I will sell my soul for it, problematic. If those principles are sort of pulling me along and guiding my life, the challenge is we'll deal with those. We don't know what they are, but we're going to be able to deal with them.
I love what you're saying about that, and it's like so often I think you may have more experiences than I do, Joe, but so often I think that things like my value system is this, but that applies unless it involves money. And then all bets are off. It's like I now it's almost like we don't trust the universe with our money. But what you just said is so akin to what we tell people is you don't have to. I mean, it's so powerful. What you just said is what you don't have to be able to predict the future. You don't have to, because that's what we try to do. What would you do? How many, we could have an endless list of hypotheticals. If this were to happen, if this were to happen, if this were to happen, and we can get overwhelmed with that. And it's like, but the idea is that you're saying is come back to your value system and trust yourself. Is because that's, we can generalize that to the whole recovery thing. It's like, no, you don't have to know everything that's going to happen to you, but trust that if you're making these calls according to your value system, wherever it is, because you also said that's going to change. Some things are going to change over time. In different times in our lives, certain things have different positions on our value system, and but it really comes down to trust yourself.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, paddle your own canoe,
that feels
right?
reassuring. That's a solid reassurance. Yeah.
And how does that sit with you, Patrick?
There was a hollowing out that I experienced after prolonged addiction issues, and I had to become reacquainted with my value system, pick up where I left off at probably like early adolescence. Learning a practice, putting it together as I go, is a way of a practice of recovery. Being accountable to others and being in touch with other addicts, kind of like puts me in a positive types of confrontation with that value system. And I hope that, like, more than just ego and self-interest, I hope that, like, the way that I can approach this situation with my girlfriend, things can spring from a place of love and wanting greater intimacy and connection between us, and to kind of maintain a unified front, and that, yeah, like I don't get too in the weeds away from that, which I away from that center, and I do feel that that's the center, but it's really been testing me, I think.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, one of the I love how you're describing that, because one of the things I think that if we're not careful with relationship, as we do in a bigger picture too, is we'll see things like this as obstacles to our relationship and to getting on with our lives and stuff like that. But it's not. It's like it is the life. It's the reason we have partners, for one thing. It's one of the reasons we have partners, is because you hear people who are in long-term relationships say, we go through this together, and that's what you're doing. It's like it becomes, as an old married guy, I can say to you that ultimately becomes to a large extent what love, at my stage of life, is made of, is like the among other things, the accumulated shared experiences that we have. And the idea that for you to be able to say to her, I don't know what I can fix or not fix, but I can guarantee you this thing: you're not going through this by yourself. That's relationship, and I often tell people when they're getting ready, I have a client that's getting ready to get married, and I say, now listen, when they say for better or worse, please understand that they're lying to you about that, because that should not be or, it should be and, for better and worse, because or indicates that the worst may not be coming. But it's like, it's both coming. One, better stuff and horrible stuff, hard stuff is going to be there. And that's what you do. And we're going to go through that. This is better and worse. And you guys are totally capable of doing that. And you need to know it's a beautiful gift for you just to say, I'm there.
And
I tried
that
to be.
applies to community too. Our
Yes.
home group, or me and my accountability partner in recovery, or me and my running mates, right? That we are going to share. We'll call bullshit on each other if needed, and we will support, radically. And that support shouldn't be that sort of dismissive, oh, it's nothing, don't worry about it. But I hear how you're feeling about this. I really hear you. That's what people need. They don't need to be told. They need to feel like they're heard.
Yep.
And, it doesn't solve the problem, but it reduces, it makes it manageable again, from overwhelming to difficult.
We're not alone. That's right.
Yeah.
We're not alone.
Is your for both of you guys, is your recovery community pretty close at hand? Like, do you feel like you have to go very far to kind of like, get when you need somebody else, or you need your strength to come from someplace else? Is that very far from where you guys live and operate?
I'm looking at it. This is part of it.
And it's as close as this telephone too. It's like, yeah, this is, you guys are it too. And it's like, and that doesn't, it doesn't take the place of face to face, because I need the face to face. But to anybody who says that the virtual stuff is not real, and there are some people who still say, well, those aren't real relationships. I'm going like, I consider both of you friends of mine, and I trust both of you. I've spent one weekend with you, Patrick. I've never stood in the same room with Joe. It's like that doesn't have a thing to do with my connection to you.
Yeah, right. And I expect we will be in a room together sometime. It just seems natural. All three of us. The only thing and Patrick and I already went through this. The only thing we discovered that we didn't know once we meet people in person is how tall they are. Yeah.
Because we don't know.
Tom's pretty tall. Tom's a good,
No, you're taller. Come on. I was disappointed.
Maybe smidge.
You were taller. I'm thinking Joe's tall.
6 and a bit. 6, just under
man.
1.
We're good.
So.
Bunch of ants over here.
That's why we look up to you. See, it's an intrinsic thing.
I went to, I think I mentioned I went to an AA panel yesterday, which is
tell me about that.
Well, it's always kind of funny because I've been to a couple before. I mean, you guys have probably been to countless, but like it was a sober living in Long Beach, California, and it almost felt like this was like we were entertainment for the kids' birthday party. We were like the clowns, with like, doing the AA presentation. But like it was, it just reminded me of like my tentative first days or first weeks in sobriety. Just like very open faced, like they were very with it. Like I have had panels where you could just tell like the people that were there were just in a really bad way, and like I wasn't sure, you know, I wasn't sure if I was even welcome really, but we did our best.
Mhm.
But yeah, but yesterday it was, yeah, just very young kids. And yeah, just I kind of made a mistake. I didn't talk about the steps. I forgot to even mention the steps. I talked about
Details.
right. Yeah, that's
Because the steps don't matter unless they connect with the people in the fellowship. You don't do the steps on your own.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, the couple of things I said was that it's something to do. So when that hollowing out occurs, you're going to have a lot of time on your hands, and I think just walking through the steps with a sponsor, even in its most haphazard way, is going to be like a good use of time. It'll take you some interesting places. And I said that there was an unburdening. I felt the degree of that unburdening. I think I can't objectively say, but then also don't do it first and then decide.
Mm-hmm. That's
You know.
good. And by the way, the way you talk about, what you kind of evaluate what you said, the very first person who hired me as an alcohol and drug counselor, long before I was sober, but it was a first job I had as an alcohol and drug counselor. It was a very wise woman, and one of the things she said to me in my first meeting with her was never be so arrogant to think you know where your help goes. And so, the idea is, she says, because it's helped me so much, because the idea is, those moments are over. You were who you were, you did that, and you will have, and truth is, after years of doing this and hearing back from people who will say that I influenced their life, it's like, I never get it right. It isn't the clever, wise things I think I said that made a difference. It's something else, and very often it's just about who I am, my being. Some people say, "Oh, well, you said this, so and so and so and so. It changed my life." And I go like, I don't even remember saying it. I'm kind of doubt that I did, but you go like, okay, it's like, that's good. So that's what you do. You provided, talk about attraction, not a promotion. You provided a model, a role model for these people to see, and to see, in my opinion, a cool guy that is in recovery, so that all those stereotypes that I used to have, is I don't want to be one of those guys. I don't want to be one of those nerds that don't drink. It's like, and you did that. And somebody's touched in there. And the thing my friend Claudine said too, she said, you don't even know, you might say something to somebody else that it may do nothing for them, but they may say it to somebody else who says it to somebody else, and that makes a difference. It's just your ripple effect, and we just do the best we can in the moment.
I was grateful to be able to do it. It really helped me, selfishly.
I
at
love
this point in time.
the description that you guys were the clowns at the party. Yes.
Well, it's just so funny because it's like you're coming into somebody's living room essentially, and just kind of like, it's weird. I've rarely had somebody that I don't know come into my living room and pitch me. So.
Well, I mean, trying to describe recovery to somebody is like trying to teach someone swimming without getting them in the water. It's not an intellectual process. It's not a course you take and learn it. It's an experiential process that we do together. And so there's only so much we can do, and people won't remember what you said. They'll remember how you made them feel.
That's right.
And if they felt good, they'll remember that as something to do with this 12 and 12 or American Airlines or something like that. Some other AA.
That's it has something to do with A. I don't know. It's vague.
Yeah. Well, there was an aspect too of, that I think I mentioned that people there at the sober living were quite young, and I was careful to mention that, like, my experience with drugs and alcohol is that it works until it doesn't, and when you're young and strong and like or on the younger side and just like pursuing that solution full tilt, that's the thing that, like, that's where people can only really decide for themselves, like, whether this is where cease to work or not. And I just felt it was important to give lip service to kind of like, look, I reached a point where I was just maxed out, and the chaos that my lifestyle had wrought, and like the pain of it, and just the burden of it all, it just got to a point where I needed to make some fundamental changes. But a person who has not arrived at that place, that is like concrete. That can be very, I would not try to overcome that with somebody else who's right.
Again, fear of loss it trumps desire for gain, right? So they see alcohol or drugs as the solution to sort of and to solve their problems.
Yeah, anesthetize. That's it. That's a rough one.
I can't do that one
either. And so you're saying, no, you have to stop taking your medicine, because that's what you say. Drugs and alcohol, they hear medicine, right? And until they need hope that there's another way, and you don't get hope from anyone other than someone already in recovery. So you probably gave them a little bit, and if they do make it to a meeting, they'll get a little bit more of it. It's kind of like COVID. You can't get COVID here.
That's right. But what you said, Joe, is the talk about fear. The fear of loss will definitely trump hope at anything. And it's sometimes you say medicine. For me, it was. It felt bigger than that. It felt like identity. I never meant to be. This is a total accident that I write self-help books. My younger self would be completely offended to learn this. It's like I'm a writer. I don't even remember making a decision to be a therapist. I made that decision somewhere in an alcoholic blackout. I don't know, but I'm grateful for that, and I love what I woke up to find in this. But it's like letting go of alcohol was letting go of who I thought I was. And it's like, and it was, and weird, strangely, my role models were very often, alcoholic authors of the early 20th century who killed themselves. But it's like, that was the romance of it. And that was the thing I believed in so much. And it's like, I honestly didn't know who I am. And I know I don't have that one. That's not just me. Everybody has some version of that. But I honestly didn't have any clue who I was when I stopped drinking. And I didn't, and the idea that I was doing that because that's the only way that I was going to, the only way Dee Dee wasn't going to kick me out. And I also knew, because ironically, I was the director of an alcohol and drug treatment center, is that that I wasn't going to lose my career. So the fear, those fears of loss, now that I put that together, Joe, it's like, so the fear of loss, that actually worked for me. To get me to do that, because there were two very real losses I was going to have if I kept going. And it wasn't the hope of recovery. No, it was not. It was it was I don't want my wife to kick me out. I don't want to lose my career. It's like
I mean, a lot of people save money from fear of consequences because they don't have a clear idea of what, like, retirement or being financially independent would even look like. They got nothing to relate to, but they're still trying to avoid consequences and of paying taxes or whatever the incentive is. And just like, whether it's our career or money, if are these things, like, money isn't evil. The love of money is evil, the root of all evil, right? Money is energy. It's our career is an energy. It's a way we can, feed our family, become rich, serve our community. Different people in each of our profession will have a different answer for that, but we get to, paddle our own canoe, just to use Allen's words while he's not here.
Exactly.
Something I thought of when you were walking us through that, Tom, is that if you were to be confronted with your younger self, I think that you would be very kind to him, and I think that's a measure of the progress you've made, right? Is that like
yeah. I would be so kind to him. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't even mention the self-help books.
Right? You maybe just leave that unsaid. Yeah. As far as money, I backslid a little bit yesterday. I got a pair of sunglasses that I really liked and that I really had no business getting, but I just needed that shopping therapy in that moment. So I don't completely regret it, but probably wasn't the most judicious or responsible thing that I did.
Okay.
This is me coming clean.
Confession. Yeah. Go and send some more. It's like,
Yeah, I should have just worn them. I should have worn the glasses through this whole podcast, just to be super obnoxious. Yeah.
Dee Dee taught me something one time that I really was pissed off about when she was teaching me. We were traveling. I was meeting with my publisher in San Francisco, and it's like, and Dee Dee had gone with me, and I, we were shopping through some really amazing stores, and I found something that was just this little globe kind of, I couldn't even describe it. It was just beautiful. And, it served no purpose whatsoever, except for being beautiful. And it's like, and it was expensive. And it's like, and I have that shopping need. Sometimes it's like really wanted it. And I was struggling through that. And I'd never heard anything like this before. But Dee Dee said to me one time, and we were looking at it, she said, you can love that and appreciate it and not own it. And I was like,
so true.
First, it was like, fuck. And then, but this is like 20 something years later. It's like, and I carry that with me. It's like, when I see things like that, and I'm not, sometimes I feel like I need to own it, but it's like, I love the idea that we don't have to own it to love it. Yeah.
Especially with technology now, like I could have just probably gotten an app that would make the little glasses float over my head, like in my phone, and I wouldn't even had to. But that's for next time, right? Man, I miss Allen. Or lately, like I've just been worried about him, and I'm just so glad. We were gonna try and record an episode about a week ago. I could tell that something was a little bit off in our text back and forth. I called him. And I'm just like, hey, man, should we just like put a pin in it for today and not record? And he said, yeah, actually, that would be great. And I think like looking at the podcast more holistically, I think that's the best way for all of us to go about it. I'm just like so grateful that Joe, is with us again this week. It's going to be at this point in time, I think it's going to be a little bit irregular and kind of like, spontaneous. We're going to be improvising. But I just I could tell that like we've got an audience that hangs with us and is like is open to that improvising, and so we're thankful for you.
That is the world of podcasts. It isn't on a schedule. It doesn't have to be a certain amount of time, and it doesn't have to have a certain frequency.
Before we finish, I'm gonna truly date myself at this point, because tell something to Joe that I think probably he and I were the only ones that get. But in terms of you being on our podcast, you are truly a Charles Grodin. You are the consummate guest who's always there and available. Like in remember the old talk show days with Johnny Carson, Charles Grodin, and he was always perfect. I mean, man could have made a living as a talk show guest.
There's been a few that have been always on Johnny Carson because they lived around the corner, right? If there was
that's right.
They could be there. Yeah. Paul Williams. One year he was on Johnny Carson 48 times.
I didn't know that. Oh my God. I sound like Johnny Carson. I did not know that.
All right. Great episode, guys. And until next time.
Okay. Until next time.
All right.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Too.
Change your life. Change your myth. Cultivate your narrative with whomever you're with. Then with glass in hand and children on one knee. Bring some stories. Bring your stories back to me. It ain't a crime to be a human. Never be ashamed to be yourself. Rest assured that whatever you're doing will entertain me like nobody else. So here's to us, my old friends, until it's time to drink the wine and break the bread again. With glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me.